Hi everybody, welcome to the Physiotherapy Digital Open Day evening talk. So just as a quick introduction, as I'm sure a couple of you are just dropping in just because we're starting pretty promptly. My name is Emma. I'm one of the lecturers here at the University of Leicester. I specialise in neuro rehab, specifically working for a long part of my career on stroke units, and I've worked just locally to the University of Leicester, the acute stroke unit. I worked there for just over 5 years as the clinical specialist there before moving to the university. I still work clinically. I do a couple of weekends every month or so on the acute stroke unit just to keep my clinical skills up. We also have with us today one of our students, so I'll hand over to Will just to let him introduce himself a little bit.
Hi, I'm Will. I'm a student on the first year of physiotherapy. I happen to also be the course rep, so I know quite a lot about the whole general goings on of stuff. So yeah, that's me.
Fab. So hopefully you have can see this presentation that I've now got up. We have got in the background, we've got Oliver working, who is producing this from the background, so we'll hear him at the end, and he will be feeding back some of the questions that you've asked. So at the side of your screen you should be able to see there's a tab where you can ask some questions. So if you have any questions throughout, do just type your questions in there, and then we're going to have a slot at the end where we can answer these questions for you, and well, Oliver will ask them, and then me and will do our best to answer these questions for you then. So I'm going to go through this presentation. So I'm going to cover both the physiotherapy course and the physiotherapy with foundation year course that we've got here at the University of Leicester. So we sit within the School of Healthcare, which began in 2018, and with the introduction of midwifery, nursing and the physiotherapy courses, adding to the well-established operating department practice course. And we have got radiology joining us with enrolment in 2022-2023. We're expecting them, they are interviewing for their first cohort to be starting next September. We are embracing the ethos of multi-professional, interprofessional learning, and we do that quite a lot within the School of Healthcare, but also across to the medical school as well. We have a lot of learning facilities that we use to improve your knowledge and skills. So there is the George Davis Centre, we also have clinical skills units, and we have access to the dissecting room. So we are one of, I think it's 2 or 3 physiotherapy courses in the UK who have regular access to the dissecting room to use the facilities and the cadavers there to deepen students' understanding of anatomy, both musculoskeletal, but also the cardiovascular system and the nervous system as well. So what's special about Leicester and physiotherapy here is we really pride ourselves on the facilities that we've got here. So we have 4 dedicated teaching rooms. So this is like the picture, the top left-hand picture. This is one of our teaching rooms. So when we say they're dedicated teaching rooms, they are solely for the use of the physiotherapy course. So no one else can be using these rooms. And what we will do is when we're not having teaching in those rooms, these rooms are available and open for our students, for our physiotherapy students only, to come in and practice their assessment and treatment skills that they've been learning in class in independent study time. We also have a movement analysis lab, which is the picture at the bottom, which has got students and a couple of the lecturers there completing research and having a go at the different equipment that we've got in there as part of their 3rd year research project. But we will also access that throughout the course as well. We also have lecture theatres and seminar rooms, so we have access to the University of Leicester's whole booking system for lecture theatres and seminar rooms. So that's when we can explore the campus a little bit more, and we can investigate different buildings and use some of those newer teaching spaces. So we quite often are over either in the George Davis Centre, which is quite a new building, which is where the medical school are, or we're at different places within the university for that. We also have access to a what we call a clinical skills lab, which is almost like a mock ward situation. So these are some pictures from the clinical skills lab. where we have high fidelity simulation. So here you can see the top left picture and the picture below. You can see two of our students. They look like one of them's practicing some auscultation and the other potentially practicing some suction there. So they're able to practice with these mannequins who are able to give breath sounds. They're able to respond, and it just gives a little bit of a opportunity to be in this kind of setting before we send our students out to clinical practice. And we also have access to the dissecting room, which I've mentioned earlier. So beyond the facilities at Leicester, which we think are a real positive, we also, in terms of the learning experience, although the course solely being at the University of Leicester, we have actually got over 16 years of experience of teaching physiotherapy, because there has been a course within Leicester, but not based at the university, for over 16 years. And some of our lecturers have been here since then, and some of our lecturers, such as myself, have joined since that time. We've all but one of our lecturers all still practice clinically still, so we are therefore up to date with clinical practice and the changes, and also the pressures and what it's like in the real world of physio as well. When students are out on clinical placement, they also have specialist visiting tutors, so that quite often is members of the lecturing team, but we also have some external visiting tutors who are able to provide support to our students when they're on placement. We also have service users that come in to the university. So the picture at the bottom here with this chap in the maroon t-shirt, he's one of our service users, and he's able to come in, and as you can see, he is really happy for the students to have a go and practice their treatment skills with him, and just to give them a bit of, he can talk to them about his experience as a service user who has received physiotherapy. In terms of ranking, we are 4th in the Guardian University Guide for Health Professions, and the student survey was 96% in 2021, so that's from the National Student Survey for Student Satisfaction, and we remained over 90% in 2022 as well, and both of those put us in the top 10 for universities offering physiotherapy courses in the UK. So I've mentioned a little bit about the staff. So like I said, we've got lecturer practitioners. We also have staff with national and international research profiles. So this guy pointing at the computer is Seth. He is one of our physio staff, but he is also deputy head of the School of Healthcare and lead for research across the whole school. We have highly qualified clinicians with teaching qualifications. So we will be, when people work here, they either already have or train towards having a teaching qualification. We also have highly trained clinical educators. So these are who our students are with when they're out in clinical practice, and they all receive training from us as to how to support our students best. And all our students receive a personal tutor, and we have training for being personal tutors as well to ensure we can support our students as best as we can. So these are some of our staff. We've not put everybody's responsibilities on here because it will just take up a lot of time. So we've just got a variety of staff here who all have different areas. And then these are the other part of our staff group as well at the moment. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I was going to talk to you about both our physiotherapy course and our physiotherapy with foundation year course. The physiotherapy course is 3 years long, and the physiotherapy with the foundation year is 4 years long. So thinking about the style of learning, I'll come back to the difference between the two in a bit. So the style of learning, we have very practical hands-on teaching, which involves practicing on each other, and to some degree an element of undress, because we need to practice, you know, for example, in this left hand picture you can see they're putting tape on each other, so therefore needing to be in shorts in that situation is important, or potentially a vest top if we're looking at auscultation or that kind of thing. But obviously we have conversations with our students about this to ensure we're respecting beliefs and that kind of thing as well. I've already mentioned that we complete interprofessional education. We also use blended learning with online and face-to-face teaching. When we say the online and face-to-face teaching, what we have been doing for since pre-COVID is actually we don't do very many face-to-face large group lectures. What our students feel is has actually been better for them is to have pre-recorded lectures, which they can then, it's still timetable time for them, but they can, to a certain degree, listen to these whenever is useful for them. And also they can go back and re-listen to them for revision. They can pause them partway through if they need to pop to the toilet or anything else, or if they suddenly, you know, start to drift off a little bit, they can rewind a certain element of it. So they find that's really helpful. But if you're not sure about that or have any further questions, Will might be really useful to give some input on that in the questions at the end. We have small practical sessions. So when we break up into practicing practical skills, we are in smaller groups, and we will generally have 15 to 18 people maximum in those groups when we're doing practical sessions. And we really like that for the ratio of students to staff in those sessions, and we can really give feedback to the students and really ensure that they're developing their skills. And in general, for a week, we have an average of 20 hours of contact hours and about 20 hours of self-directed practice as well. So this is the structure of the 3-year BSc course, and this is the same as the final is as year 2, 3 and 4 for the foundation year. So they just do a separate year at the beginning, pre that first year. So they do what we call a year 0. But if we just think about the BSc honours course structure, we split these into 4 different types of modules. So we have a clinical skills modules, which are the green modules, if you can see that. So in the first year, our students do 2 different anatomy modules, 2 different pathophysiology modules, and then they do 2 separate modules which are titled Introducing Practice 1 and 2. And these look at starting to think about 2 different parts of the assessment. So the subjective assessment and then the objective assessment, and we split those in half as well. Each year our students do a professional development module as well. And so in year 1 they do that, and this is a joint module with the nurses and the midwives, and that's done very first off when they come in. And then we look also an evidence-based practice module every year, so that's also in the second session of year 1. We also have a what we call a PEW session, which is a placement experience week. So our students will have simulations and also experiencing clinical practice and observational time in practice to go out and just get that first taste of being face-to-face with patients in real life. And then into year 2, we go through more clinical skills modules where we separate out into some of the key core areas. So we have a musculoskeletal strand, cardiorespiratory strand and a neurology strand. They then go out on their first 6-week placement. Once they come back from that, they then have 2 modules, which is an evidence-based practice module and then a second professional development module. Those 2 modules are split by their second placement. And I'm going to come back and talk about placements later. Then finally, in year 3, they come back in for induction week, and then our students will go straight out into a clinical placement. And then in year 3, the 3 modules run throughout the year. So then they have an enhancing practice module, which is another clinical skills module, which is looking at different and novel and emerging areas of physio. We then have a professional development module, which looks at employability and also emerging issues in health. And then evidence-based practice. The final module is our students' dissertation. And then they have another 2 further placements within this year. Lovely. So I just mentioned just there that we have our students do a dissertation in their final year. So the year 3 research projects. So these are really varying projects that our students will do depending on what they're interested in doing, and some of them will be using some really state-of-the-art equipment that we've got, and we have a lot of because one of Seth's big research things that he's looking at is ultrasound scanning tendons, so a lot of our students get involved in that as part of their dissertation. But we also have this picture here of someone using the Biodex Balanced Performance, so they'll do a lot of work on that as well. But some students will potentially be doing less high-tech equipment for their dissertations, but maybe be looking at students' perception of different things and trying to get more qualitative research to improve the quality of care in that respect as well. Here we go. So I mentioned that I was going to come back and talk about practice education. So as a physio course, to ensure you are able to register with the Healthcare and Professions Council at the end of your degree, it is essential that you are provided with 1,000 hours of clinical practice. So, and different universities will put that into courses in different ways. So the way in which we currently do at Leicester is, I mentioned we've got this simulation and observation week in year 1. And then in year 2, our students receive 2 6-week placements in year 2. And then in year 3, our students receive 2 6-week and 1 5-week placement. And we have a really broad range of placements available for our students, and they're in terms of the clinical areas they're in, but also in the locations that they're in. So our locations that our students will go into is, we'll have a lot in Leicester and Leicestershire. We'll also have placements in Rutland, and then some of the surrounding areas like in Northampton, Kettering, Peterborough, Coventry as well. And we've also got a really exciting new placement provider in Shipley, which is in, I think, West Yorkshire, kind of Leeds, Bradford area. And we now have all second years are currently completing their first placement in Shipley, because it's a set up clinic specifically for student physios, but they also have nurses, pharmacists, and it's really set up for that transition between being in university and seeing patients. So you have a lot of patient contact, but also having experience of developing those skills and the time to be able to do this. When our students are on placement, they will also have clinical educator support. So that means that there is a named member of the team they are working in who is responsible for looking after them. And that is often done in different ways. So we look at novel ways of this happening, but it will be a physio that is responsible for the student and can provide guidance, provide a sounding board, and provide teaching as well for the student in that setting. All of our students also have what we call a visiting tutor. So that is a member of either the university staff, or we have, like I mentioned earlier, external visiting tutors who visits the student. We now visit via Teams because we find that that's beneficial for the students and the educators. We can be more flexible with our timings then. And we meet up with our students at least twice during placement, but we are able to provide more support as needed. We also offer peer and staff support via something called a Blackboard Clinical Forum, which is our virtual learning environment. Blackboard is what we use here at Leicester. And we also provide clinical uniform for our students when they're out on placement. So in terms of opportunities within placement, we have placements within our local hospitals, we have placement within our community trusts, but we also have NHS clinical research placements. So this picture at the bottom is one of our students who's now in our 3rd year, who was on one of these NHS clinical research placements, and he recently took his poster and research that he'd done to an international conference in Barcelona in September, and he's there with Charlotte, one of our lecturers. We also have on-campus research placements as well. We're looking at innovative models of supervision on placement as well. And as I've mentioned, our whole cohort go on placement to Shipley, so we don't send people on their own to these places. We have leadership placements, so getting people's an idea and to think about different roles that physios can be in as well. But they still, those placements still have an element of clinical practice generally in them too. And as I said, that was Chitin presenting at an international conference, and above is some of our ex-students who took their dissertations to an international conference as well. I can't remember exactly where that was, but we also have a couple of other students who presented at national conference last week as well. So in terms of the support that we can provide to you, we provide all of our students with an iPad, and this we use throughout the course in terms of the teaching that we provide. We provide a lot of digital resources, and so students will use their iPad for those as well. As I mentioned earlier, all of our students receive a personal tutor, and we offer pastoral support as well to our students. So within the personal tutor system, we meet up with our first years in their first week, and then we will keep in touch by dropping them emails. If we're teaching them, we'll check in with them then as well. And we have an open door policy within the teaching staff, which students are always encouraged and welcome to just come and have a chat with us when we're in the office in between sessions and that kind of thing as well. One of the things about pastoral support as well, with our slightly smaller cohort and also our small group sizes, we keep an eye on when students are there. And if students aren't attending, it is a professional expectation and requirement for students to be attending the sessions. But if students aren't present, we do chase them up to check they're okay and check nothing's happened. So we kind of will know what's going on from people, and just to check in with them and check everything's all right. And if we're concerned, we're able to escalate that through the university as well. We have additional support that is available to be offered to students as well. So we have within the university an accessibility centre, we've got welfare, we've got all sorts of different places that centrally university provided that we can refer our students onto, and we have specialist tutors within our department as well, who are things like accessibility leads as well. And as I've mentioned, you have a visiting tutor who can support while on placement too. So as you may well have discovered from looking at different things when looking at physio, there is the NHS Learning Support Fund, which if students are eligible, they can get a training grant of £5,000 per academic year. And also if students have at least one dependent child under 15 years or under 17 if they're registered with special educational needs, our students can receive £2,000. Our students can receive £2,000 for that. We are also able to reimburse excessive costs incurred on practice placement for travel and any temporary accommodation as well. But students are expected to pay for that upfront, and then we will reimburse. And this is what this £5,000 training grant is for, to help cover that and enable our students to be able to do that too. And if any students who experience financial hardship, there is the Exceptional Support Fund as well, and other support that's available through the Central University. Lovely. So employability, which is one of the big things, like people want to, you want to come and study physiotherapy because you want to be a physiotherapist at the end and work as a physiotherapist. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on here at Leicester is that we offer our students what we call an excellent clinical placement profile. This means that we provide the placements for our students, and we ensure that they are given a range of placements, so they come out at the end of university with the most employability that they can have, rather than just being have done the same placement over and over again. We will do clinical specialisms and in terms of presentation of the patient, in terms of different areas that we can work in. As far as the university is concerned and our placement team, we have links with the NHS, and we've got really good links with all of our local providers. We've got links with private healthcare, with military rehab. So in Leicestershire, we have the DMRC, which is a big military rehab base, which we send students on placement to. We also have links with charitable healthcare providers as well, and also high-level sport as well. And there we have got hundreds of graduate success stories as well that I don't have time to tell you all about. So this is just student perspective from Jack, who was a physio with us, and he says Leicester physiotherapy course was the best decision I made after sixth form, and the first step towards a successful career. Both the campus and lecturers were fantastic, providing optimum facility and the highest quality teaching. The opportunity to learn from lecturers who are currently working in both academia and clinical work was a brilliant bonus. Since qualifying, I've stayed local and worked in both Leicestershire trusts, which have strong links with the university, and I'm in contact with a number of lecturers. I would highly recommend to anyone looking for a top quality physiotherapy degree. So that was Jack. So in terms of applying to Leicester, so for the BSc, we accept applications through UCAS. This is all information which is on the university website, but in terms of A-level, our offers, we don't accept tariff equivalents. We accept people with grades of A, B, B, and they need to have one of those needs to be in biology, human biology, or physical education. We don't accept general studies, critical thinking, and the EPQ. In addition to this, our applicants need to have 6 subjects, including a grade B or grade 6 in English language and maths, plus a grade C or 5 in 4 other subjects, including combined or single science subjects. If you are doing not the A-level route into physiotherapy, there is more information here. So we accept access to higher education diplomas, also the IB and BTEC nationals. So with BTEC, we would like pass of the diploma with distinction in a healthcare related subject or sport and exercise science. And then we provide the foundation year, but some other universities will also do a foundation year, and you can apply to move to us if you would like, but you need to have 120 credits with at least 30 credits in a relevant subject and an overall course average of 70%. If you've already done a degree, we're expecting people to come with a 2-1 or better. And if your degree is in a related subject, so this could be biomedical sciences, biology, anatomy, then you don't need to meet the entry requirements above. However, if your degree is in an unrelated subject, so media studies or something, you'll need at least a grade B in A-level biology. If anyone is currently serving in the armed forces, we are part of the Armed Forces into Allied Health, which is the AFIA project, and you can contact the admissions tutors for advice in that respect. But all of this information, as I've whizzed through it quite quickly, is on the website. So for our foundation year, is through biological sciences with a specific module in that, which is the anatomy module, which we run from the physio course. You need to apply again through UCAS for the foundation year. The A-levels we expect are BBC, and at least one of those needs to be in a science-based subject from biology, human biology, physics, chemistry, psychology, and PE. And then you need 6 subjects. The same for GCSE and a grade B or 6 in English language and maths, plus a grade C or 5 in 4 other subjects. We do also accept access diplomas and the IB and BTEC nationals. All of these, as I said, are on the website, and we can point you to more information there if needed. So when you've submitted your application in, we will invite all suitable applicants will be invited for interviews, and these are, if you are based in the UK, these are face-to-face interviews, and all offers are subject to satisfactory health clearance and DBS disclosure. All applicants must be 18 years old by the time the course starts, and any international applicants must have an IELTS of a score of 7 with no single element below 6.5. So as part of the UCAS application form, there is the personal statement. And so these are just a few tips for writing this and things to consider. Is thinking about aligning it with the NHS values-based recruitment framework and thinking about that, because that's one of the things that we look at. We're expecting to see a broad understanding of the role of physiotherapy and the role of the physiotherapist. So not just thinking in one specific area, but looking at the broad understanding of the different areas that physios can work in. And also why you are a suitable candidate for a place on the physiotherapy course. And we want to see that you can clearly articulate these things and giving examples that show that you have what it takes to make a physio. And just let us know of any observational experience that you've had and why that made a difference to you. We are really aware that since COVID, some people have really struggled to get face-to-face observational experience. So just highlight that to us if that's the case for you, and just let us know about what you've done to get that understanding of what physio is. So I know that there's a lot of online courses that happen. There's a lot of information on YouTube. There's a lot of information on the internet. The Chartered Society of Physiotherapy have a lot of information there as well. So just tell us how you've researched physio if there's been no way of you getting any work experience at all. So one of the things that we talk about at Leicester as a whole is we talk about becoming citizens of change. So we're looking for students who have empathy and the ability to care for others, because that's one of the things that physio has at its centre is empathy and care. We want people to have the ability to treat others with respect, and we want you to thrive with responsibility and leadership. And we want people to be able to manage with uncertainty, because I think we've all seen over the last few years about the uncertainty that can be around, and also the uncertainty within the healthcare sector and the different pressures and changes that need to be on us. We're looking for students who are resilient and the ability to problem solve. So that is all I have from this presentation. So let me just stop my screen share here. Lovely. So that's all I have from my presentation. So I think we'll just see if anyone's got any questions at all.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Emma. One question that's come in is around kind of what's the sort of typical classroom size that you'd expect on the course, and perhaps the lecture sort of size as well.
Yeah, so I'm presuming that in terms of classroom size, we're meaning like how many students are in the class. We generally will have, like I said, practical groups and seminar groups. So the practical groups are 15 to 18 people, and then sometimes for some of our seminar groups, these might be kind of like maybe 25 people in them. And that's kind of what most of our work is. But any practical skills, it's that 15 to 18, which is what most of the groups are in. For the rare occasions that we do a lecture, that will be to the whole year cohort. And I always say it's slightly out, but I think at the moment we've got, I want to say there is about 61 in our first year potentially, and about 64 in our second year, and I think there's ever so slightly more in our third year, but that's kind of like the class sizes that we're with at the moment.
Fantastic, thank you. There's a few more questions come in, so do feel free to continue writing your questions. So just having a look through, what kind of formats are the assessments in at the end of the module? So perhaps if you could provide a bit of an overview of the assessment structure.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I was going to hope to pass this on to Will, but he hasn't had to start any yet, so I think that's going to be a little bit mean. So the assessment is dependent on the module. So we use a variety of different assessments depending on the module need. So we do quite a lot of practical assessments, and we quite often will call them OSCEs, because but so then we're looking at practical assessments. We also, in the first year, we do a couple of sit-down written exams. And then in the first year as well, there is 2 written pieces of work and 1 presentation. In the second year, there's more OSCEs, and then there is a presentation and the dissertation proposal. So that is a written piece of work as well. And then in the final year, there is more written work. We've got a dissertation, we have a presentation, and we've got a couple of reports as well, which is a slightly different style of writing. And then the placements are marked, and within placements, there is also we call them a clinical reasoning viva, but they're different. So they're different depending on what placement it is. So it could be presenting a patient to us and then having a question and answer style discussion about the patient. Our third years have just done a poster presentation as part of that. And they also do a mock interview to ready them for interviewing for applying for jobs. And they also do a presentation training session as well on there. I think that's all of the assessments that we do.
That's fantastic. It's a thorough assessment of assessments. A question just coming to Will. Will, now as questions come in, what's generally been your favourite part of the course so far? Given that you're in first year, so I guess this autumn, what's been your favourite part so far?
Oh, well, it's hard to pick actually. I'm having a really good time. What springs to mind is anatomy, because I was a bit scared of anatomy because it's very, well, there's a lot of it that you have to do, and we've been doing appendicular anatomy, which is like your arms and your legs, and it's really thorough but also really cool, and it's very, very interactive as well. So you end up sort of all the time we're getting up and we're doing observations of seeing a lecturer palpate different parts of someone's anatomy, and then you go and do it with your sort of buddy and other people in your group, and it's just really interactive, and you can do it for, like, you can have quite long seminars doing it, but you don't feel bored at all. Like, you can do it for 3 hours and feel like you've been doing it for half an hour because it just flies by, because it's one of those sorts of things that's really interactive and enjoyable. So I'd probably say that.
That's fantastic, thank you, Will. And I'm coming back to yourself, Emma, now, and another question that's come in terms of being accepted onto the courses. Do you know how many people are generally accepted onto the course? And with this, are our interviews online or face-to-face?
Yeah, so we have a cohort size of 65. So that's how many students we accept onto our course. For the BSc is 65, and for our foundation year it is between 25 and 30 people that we have on the foundation year as well. So yeah, so it's 65 for the BSc and that for the foundation year. And our interviews are face-to-face, so we've just been doing some this afternoon. Yeah, they're face-to-face. If people are living internationally, then they need to get in touch and we can do arrangements for that, but it has to be yeah, that's on a case-by-case basis.
That's brilliant, thank you very much. With that as well, in terms of the course, somebody's asked, actually, will it be suitable to get into physiotherapy for football? So I suppose any kind of specific sports, are they covered on the course, and how would that work?
So we all physiotherapy courses are required to cover very similar content in terms of making sure that we graduate people who are able to work as a physiotherapist in a variety of different areas. So we provide that across the board training. We have got some graduates who are now working in sport, and we have some that are working in football as well. So there's no reason why not, but it would be a case of the course will provide teaching not just in sports and musculoskeletal, but also into cardiorespiratory, neurology and other areas as well. And there'll be an expectation that you will attend or you will have placements in these different areas as well.
Fantastic. Do you continue to give last sort of few moments for questions, or take on just a couple more? So one that's come in is around, they're wondering whether or not their sort of personal experience of sort of injury and experiencing physiotherapy themselves could be valuable to the personal statement. And I suppose with that as well, Emma, is there any tips that you can provide prior to applying to universities? Anything that students can be doing beforehand?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, completely thinking about your experience of physio, if that has impacted your decision and is the thing that made you think about, this is why I want to be a physio, like that's what sparked your interest, then of course that's completely great to put into your personal statement. I think it's just being careful you don't fall into the trap that physio only treats people with sports injuries, because that's kind of what I read quite a lot, is people applying and thinking it's just sports injuries that is being covered. So I would say that yeah, absolutely fine, but don't get falling into the trap of that's the only physio that you can have. Think about, this sparked, I did gymnastics and I kept twisting my ankle, so I went to see physio, and that really sparked my interest. And then I learned more about physio, and this seemed really interesting and exciting, and I learned about, you know, neuro and how great that is, and the opportunities within cardiorespiratory and on ITU and that kind of thing would be really good.
That's brilliant. Very well answered. And I'm going to come back to Will now. Is a question around, could you perhaps just describe a typical day, and I imagine that each day will vary in a week, but perhaps a typical day that you'd expect as a physiotherapy student?
Yeah, absolutely. It does vary. You're right. It's probably easier for me to describe a week, because a lot of my days are quite different. So, for example, I have a full day on a Tuesday, but then I don't have any other full days. And I also, at the minute, get my Wednesdays fully off. And I think that changes in second semester. But I kind of, let's take a Monday, for example. I wake up on a sort of a early-ish so that I can get some lead lectures done. So as Emma was talking about earlier on, they do these lead lectures on a platform called Panopto. So what you used to do is you would all come in, big lecture theatre, 60 people, the whole cohort, and we'd all just, you'd sort of do all the content before trying to actually do some practicing and some questions on it in a seminar. Whereas they thought that it would be a great idea if we could just do that whenever, rather than having to drag yourself up at 9 AM every morning. And it is much easier. It's really, really good. So I'll probably do a few of them. I tend to try and work a little bit in advance. So it might be for, I don't know, a lecture on Friday or something, or the next Monday. And then I get myself into uni at 1 o'clock to do pathophysiology, which is about diseases and biology and stuff like that. And that's really fun, really interactive. We just do, because it's a seminar, we basically just do loads of tasks and questions that cement the knowledge that we've covered in the lead lecture. And then you kind of sometimes have to focus on, this will be important in your assessment, and this is how it could come up in your assessment. And that's really, really good. You get to know the other people on your cohort. If it's another kind of lecture like introducing practice, that's more about assessment and how to assess patients. So you might do a bit of role play assessing patients. So like the other day I was being a patient, and then another one of my cohort was being a physiotherapist, and I had to present with all of these things verbally, and then they had to try and extract information from me. And that's because that's what we'll have to do in our OSCE Viva in January. So it's very interactive, and it's, well, yeah, no day is the same.
No, that's brilliant. That's really helpful insight, Will. Thank you for that. We're gonna shortly finish, but there's one question which I'm keen to just put to yourself, Emma, and is around the foundation year that you mentioned, is for the entry requirements. Are you able to just provide an overview of the entry requirements? For example, one student has 3 A levels in politics, sociology, and philosophy. Would that be okay as subjects, and what would they need?
Okay, let me just have a quick, I'm just going to I'm just going to do it on my own screen so I don't make you all dizzy. I can just make myself dizzy whizzing through my presentation. So in terms of A level, we require at least one science-based subject from biology, human biology, physics, chemistry, psychology and PE. So I can't remember what subjects you listed out there, Oliver, but I've got a feeling it didn't include one of those. So unfortunately, we would say that if it's not including one of those science-based subjects, we wouldn't accept that, no.
And that would be the case for the foundation.
That would be, that's the foundation year requirements, yeah. So for the BSc, it's quite tight on, it's got to be biology, human biology or PE. Whereas for the foundation year, we widen it to science subjects, which is biology, chemistry, physics. Biology, chemistry, physics, human biology, psychology and PE. So we kind of add in the physics, chemistry and psychology to for the foundation year. It's just because otherwise students aren't arriving with the right base level of knowledge to be able to then keep up with what's happening.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. We're going to close the session there. I've seen a few questions that have come in generally about sort of entry requirements. So do feel free to take a look at the website, which I have put in the Q&A, a link to our website for the courses. So do feel free to have a look at that. But if your question isn't answered, there's also the option to get in touch with our admissions team, who'll be more than happy to have a look at your specific entry requirements, whether you're based in the UK or whether you're coming as an international student. Any last words from yourself, Emma, or Will?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think, like Oliver says, if it's any questions specifically about entry requirements, the admissions team are amazing and they can pretty much answer 99% of the questions that come through, and they have a hotline to my email, so they ping through the ones they can't answer, and then I try and work out what the best approach is from there. So yeah, do contact the admissions team, and any questions they can't answer, they send through to us, and we'll be able to get you an answer for that as well.
Only just that with regards to the admissions team, the organisation of the whole school and university is absolutely brilliant. So I'm sure they'll get back to you dead quick. It's really, really good for that.
That's brilliant. Thank you both, and thank you everyone for attending this evening, wherever you may well be coming from around the world. And please do feel free to get in touch if you've got any further questions. But thank you again for attending, and we hope to see you here soon.
Bye.